Hello, everyone. It's Sharron Ragan. I am a spiritual mentor, coach, and owner of Heart, Soul, and Art, one of the largest metaphysical shops in the Atlanta area. I am so glad to be here today. In fact, I'm really excited because this is something I love to talk about, and I hope that this helps you as well. So, for those of you that are wanting to start a spiritual business, and I usually say it's either soul led or it's heart led, it's heart centered. But in reality, what you really want to do is you want to step into your purpose and you want to make a difference in others' lives. You want to be able to guide others to have a better life, or you want to teach them something, or maybe you want to help them build a business. But I am excited today to be able to talk about how you can begin to take your business to a higher level, regardless of whether you're a beginner or you already have your business going, and the things that get in your way sometimes. And I want to be able to reiterate those things and then give you a little bit of food for thought as you start to build your business, because I get excited. I was in the corporate world for 25 years, and I loved it. I mean, I did enjoy working in the corporate world, but I did realize over time that it was not where I wanted to stay. And eventually, I wanted to try my hand at being an entrepreneur and take a lot of what I knew and what I learned and share that with others. And in my career, I spent all this time working in the marketing and branding industry. And, starting out in the advertising industry and understanding how to work with clients and how they build their business and how to develop plans. And then when I left the corporate world, I actually built a process and a model for small businesses to be able to build their brand and build their business the same way that major corporations build their business. Because, I mean, look at it this way: a major corporation can take $1 million, they'll have a budget of $1 million, and they can literally build a brand in a few weeks or a few months because they can roll out all kinds of marketing programs, whether it's radio, TV, billboards, social media, all of those things. So, of course, they can build a big brand. Of course, they can bring visibility to who they are and what they offer. But what does a small business do? And there is an academic process of building your business that could be similar to the major corporations. And a lot of people do not know, like, how do I do this? But there is a process. And I'm going to walk you through a little bit of that process. And also, as you know, as I've said, I'm owner of Heart, Soul, and Art, which is one of the larger metaphysical shops in the Southeast. And, I built my business to $1 million business. And a lot of that came from me recognizing that I have to build a brand and that there are certain things that you must do. And if you build that foundation, if you build a solid foundation, then your business will grow. So let's talk about some of the things that you want to start with. And even right now, even if you're an accomplished business owner, but yet you want to take your business to a higher level, all of this will still be valid for you, because I want you to kind of go back and do an assessment of, are you actually doing all these things? And then for those of you that might be desiring to start a business, you have an idea, maybe you're going to make that switch from the corporate world, or you're going to leave your job, or you've left your job and you're kind of working on where you're going to go. This is great for you too, because it all goes back with a foundation. And just like building a house, if the foundation is not secure and stable, it doesn't matter what you build on top of it, it's going to topple at some point. So, first and foremost, you need to be very clear about the direction that you want to move in. You need to know, what is your service? What is your product? You've got to really get clear about that. And you really kind of need to know what that is. But there's a little bit I'm going to talk about here. There's a little bit that is kind of like the chicken and the egg, like what comes first? Is it the egg or the chicken, or the chicken or the egg? So I'm going to bounce back and forth on a couple of things. But really, truly, if you're in business and you're a spiritual individual, that you have this desire. You're kind of like, oh, I think I want to work with people, Or, I think I want to become an energy worker. I really do want to work with people with energy, or I want to teach classes in the spiritual world. There's just so many opportunities. You may want to become a yoga instructor, or even open a yoga studio, or maybe have a small business, or you want to teach meditation. But again, I want you to think about this. If that is your goal and you want to be paid for it, it's a business. It's not a hobby. Don't take something that you just kind of want to make a hobby and that's it. Because if you want a business, you got to be in business. You have to take it seriously. You have to be able to take the steps to build a business. And especially if you want to grow that business and you want to be able to bring in more income, more revenue, you're always looking at how you're going to build it. So first, let's just have that clarity of vision. And I want you to really think about, what is your mission? So, start first, just scribble down. And I say scribble down because you'll probably change it 5 or 6 times, but really start thinking about, what is your mission? Now, if I use my example of my mission in my business, I left the corporate world. I did coaching and consulting. I'm an intuitive, so I did sessions with people. I work with businesses. I also did intuitive work with businesses on what their blocks were. And so I was just kind of doing that on my own. And I did have I had a space, I had a consulting business, but I really wasn't working sort of full time. I was more just enjoying it. But I realized I had to get a lot more serious. And so I decided that I really needed to sit down and develop my own brand. And I did. I spent some time. I built what my brand was. But my main mission statement was, because I had decided at one point, I had the calling, I was led to opening the retail business. And even though it wasn't, I was like, oh no, I don't know if I want to open a retail business because that's like 24/7. What I realized is that I had to be very clear, but I knew that I had a mission. And whether it was in the retail business or whether it was in my consulting business, I knew that I wanted to have a business where people felt safe, where they felt loved, and where they were accepted. And also, I wanted to educate people on how to use the tools in the spiritual world. We talk about spiritual led businesses, and we talk about the spiritualness of ourselves, but there's all kinds of tools that can help us. And what I discovered in the developing of a retail business and carrying a lot of spiritual tools, that I could commingle spiritual tools with traditional marketing and branding tools, and I could bring them together. And that's been a lot of fun. It's still a lot of fun, and I'm going to be happy to share with you some of those things today. So start out, make sure you have your mission statement. And if you already have a mission statement, just take a look at it and review it and say, am I really still adhering to this particular mission statement? Now, I want to talk about mindset, and I want to talk about confidence, because confidence is really the first step, because you must have the confidence to step into developing a business. And then, of course, you want to have, you may develop a mission statement, and then you're like, oh, I don't know if I have the confidence. Can I do this? So this is where I talk about the chicken and the egg, is that you're going to find yourself going back and forth. That's okay. You can do that. But you do want to embody a mindset. You want to focus on the solutions of a product, not the problem. But you also want to understand your audience, and you want to understand what kind of problem that your audience might have and how you could solve that problem. And that's a pretty standard process in developing a business. And then as you start to put this together, I like to kind of introduce what I call developing your brand. But first and foremost, I want to be able to give you insight on how to develop what we call brand characteristics. Because if you can build solid brand characteristics of your business and you review those on a regular basis, you will find that your business will thrive as long as you are adhering to those brand structures that you put together and the characteristics that you defined. So, I use the example sometimes where large companies want to change a product, and most large companies have developed what they call brand characteristics. And they decide all of a sudden, "No, we're going to change a product." And I'll use example. I mean, it's like a worldwide example. Everybody's used it. It's with Coca-Cola. When they decided, well, I guess it was about 30 years ago, they decided that perhaps they might change their classic Coke formula. And they began to promote and developed a product that they were going to roll out. And actually, their customers basically rebelled. And customers said, "No, we don't want you to change that classic taste." Now, it's probably changed a lot now because that was about 30 years ago, and the audience has changed. But the audience at that time, the commitment that the Coca-Cola brand made to their audience, back in the 50s and the 60s, was that that classic Coke product would always be cold and refreshing. And the customers always wanted that. And so what happened is they kind of broke some of their brand characteristics. They no longer were going to provide that brand characteristic about that if you change the taste or the flavor of that product, that it's going to change it. And it may not be ice cold and refreshing, which is what a lot of the advertising was about when they were building that classic Coke brand. So in fact, I'm going to give you an example later of how I broke my brand characteristic with my business once, and how I realized that it was impacting my revenue and my sales because I broke that brand characteristic. When I went back and I reviewed that, I went, "Oh my goodness, I'm not holding true to this." When I corrected that, my business began to thrive. So brand characteristics are very important, and they can be just a simple word. I usually find a word and then I write a description as to what that word means. And so as an example, one word in my brand characteristic is um, always improving the process. And then I may have a description around always improving the process that says that I always want to be knowledgeable and educate myself on spiritual development to learn there may be new techniques, there may be new ways that I can bring to my customers in order for them to elevate their spiritual knowledge and or their experience so that they can accomplish what they want to accomplish. And so I typically write about, I would say 5 to 7 brand characteristics, and then I give it a description. And then once I'm clear on that, to me, that's like it's etched in stone because I'm always going to go back to that. One year I had a brand characteristic that my business should be fun and happy, and I think I had fun and happy. And then as the description, I said, I want my customers to always come in and feel as though they're happy and they love the color of the interior of the business. And, that everyone that was in the business, including myself, we were happy and the customers were having a lot of fun. And I found at one point that that fun stopped and that some of the employees were unhappy for whatever reasons. And it made me kind of frustrated. And I realized one day, wow, even my customers are coming in and they don't seem very happy. So when I went back and I reviewed my brand characteristics, that was the one uh, commitment that I had made that was no longer happening. And so had to make a change, on employees, had to do something different, had to bring people into the business that were always going to have a good attitude and be fun and happy. So, it may sound, minor to you that, oh, well, really that happens, but I'm going to guarantee you, yes, that does happen. The next thing you want to do, and again, I'm talking more about spiritual, but before you get into the real meat of developing and looking at your business, is energetic alignment. I can't talk enough about energetic alignment. And energetic alignment is about removing anything that's negative in your spiritual and energetic area. Or we kind of have this what I call a sort of a field of energy around us. And you must focus on being positive. And also, you don't want to focus on things that don't serve your business right now. And that's something a lot of people do in the beginning. They get focused on what we call the bright, shiny things, and they don't do the hard work first. But first and foremost is you want to align your energy with the universal energy. Number one, put yourself in a positive atmosphere. Two, that might be by meditating. It might be by being in a group of like-minded people that are talking about how to move their business forward. You're giving each other ideas. You're keeping each other, positive, and you're supporting each other. You're uplifting each other. But you want to stay positive about your business goals, what your goals are. You also want to trust your intuition. That's how you align yourself with the universe. And when you trust your intuition, you also have to have faith that if you're asking the universe to provide, that the universe will provide. And you have to believe it. You can't set an intention and then 2 hours later say, oh, that's not going to work. You have to set the intention or put whatever it is out there in the universe, and then you forget it or you put it aside and you move forward on something else. The other part is as you start to create your what I call your development area, like maybe your office, maybe you've already got your business. It could be retail, it could be consulting, or it could be just a home office in your home. Is keep that area organized, put symbols, words, anything that makes you feel good, anything that makes you feel spiritual, anything that represents the type of energy that you want to carry every day. And I know some people put, like, I have stones and crystals, and I have a Tibetan bowl that every now and then I play when I need a break. And I also like to collect Buddhas, and I collect a lot of antique Buddhas, a lot of wooden Buddhas, stone Buddhas, all different kinds. And so I kind of have this collection that I have in my office space, and it just makes me feel good. It makes me feel connected. So, when you start building that physical space to do your planning and to do your thinking, you want to have that nice and comfy for yourself, because that's going to support you as you build your business. Then you also really dig deep and think about what is your expertise. I have coached so many people that say, I need to go get this certification and that certification because I don't think I'm good enough, or I've got to have a degree in this before I can really do this work. And I'm going to say that that's not always the case. I think that if you have a gift and you are able to share that gift and it's benefiting others, and if you have a lot of experience in that area or in that gift, and yes, maybe you've taken a class or maybe you've taken a course. Most people go and take classes and courses, and so they have the experience, but they think, oh no, I've got to take 5 more. But the reality is if you've taken a class or a course and you're really good at what you're doing, then you're ready. And that becomes an excuse a lot of business owners, is that, well, I don't think I'm ready. Well, there's never really a ready time. Sometimes you just have to step out there and practice. You have to step out there and actually ask yourself, I can do this. Ask yourself, what is it that's keeping me stuck? Because that will be your biggest barrier. You may have all the knowledge in the world. You may have all the training in the world. You may have all the paperwork done. You may have everything together. I've seen this happen too many times. And then all of a sudden, you're like paralyzed with fear. Oh, I can't take that next step. I'm afraid to start seeking clients. I don't know how to sell to people. And I do want to just talk a little bit about getting ready when you get everything pulled together. I will later talk about selling because I want to change that word because you're always selling, but you don't want to think that, oh my gosh, I've got to sell. What you're doing is you are presenting yourself. You are sharing your passion. You are sharing your knowledge. And that is what is going to bring people to you that will get to know you, like you, and trust you because that's so important. So, we're going to overcome the challenges. You're going to stay aligned. You're going to move through any kind of self-doubt. You're going to, you're also going to reach out to others maybe that have experienced developing a business, and you're going to really start to think about how you want to set up your business, how you want to align it. Um, you've got to build a business model. And there's a lot of good books out there. There's also a program called the One Page Business Plan. I've used it a lot in the past. I actually have an ebook that I put together that's about how to develop your spiritual business. It's similar to the One Page Business Plan because you have to go through a question process and pull together what the answers are based on how you're going to build your business. I remember there was a TV show not too long ago. It was probably about 4 or 5 years ago. And it was called The Profit. And it was Profit for like the profit of a business. And his name was Marcus Lemonis. And I thought he was amazing. I love this show. He would go into a business, and the business had to be, I think, at least $1 million business. But let's say they were struggling or they wanted to grow, but they just didn't know how to grow beyond that $1 million business because they wanted to become a multi-million-dollar business. So Marcus Lemonis would come in and he would invest money in their business, but he would tell them, I'm going to invest a certain amount of money, but I have to be in charge. And you have to agree, or you at least need to agree when we discuss it, of what I know, how your business will grow. And it was an interesting show because it was like a reality show, of course. And he took businesses that were barely making $1 million and struggling, and he took them to multi-million-dollar businesses, but they had to trust in him, and he knew what it would take in order for that business to grow, and that owner couldn't see it, but he could. So you have to be willing to also listen to others and to get insight, to gain insight, and then you have to put your process together. And his process, which I loved, was, if I recall, it was people first, because you've got to have the right people, and then it was product. Then you got to have the right product, and then you've got to have the right process, and then that process will lead to profit. So if you've got all three of those in place. So if you're an independent business or a solopreneur, the person is you. And then obviously it's what product you deliver. And then it's also what process are you putting yourself through in your business. I know one day I was working with a coach. She wanted to coach others, and she did life coaching. And so I asked her, so what's your process? And she said, what do you mean, what is my process? And I said, well, when from the moment that a client is attracted to you and they're going to book a session with you, how does that work? Do they book online? Do they pick up the phone and call you? And then when they call you, what do you say to them? If they book online, do they have a form to fill out? And then if they make the appointment and they come in, what do you initially do when they sit down? What's the first thing you say? What's the next step you take? What's the next step you take? And then I actually had this individual literally write out every step and process that they presented to their client, and then what their outcome was and what they wanted that client to achieve. And then if they wanted that client to come back, what was your process in that for them to come back? Did you offer a package? Was it a one-time session those kinds of things. All of that should be documented on paper. Why? Because it causes you to become consistent. And when you're consistent, people want to work with you. But if you have a different process every time a client comes in, then you may find that they don't come back. And it doesn't mean that you don't customize some things that you're doing with that person, but you have to have a process. And then the other part is, well, then how do you take payment? How do you market yourself online? How do they see you? You must have a process. And if you don't have that process, then you're going to have trouble. And I've seen more people fail because they weren't consistent with their process. We have a process in our shop. I mean, when I created the retail business, before I even opened the business, I sat down and said, what do I want my customer to feel? What is it going to be like for them to walk through the door? What do I want an employee to say to them? And how do I want them to navigate my business? And how do I want to help them to find the right stones or crystals or incense or candles or jewelry or anything that they're seeking? I had to completely write that process out. And guess what? Once I did that and we put that together, we put it into action, it also became one of our training modules. So you really have to think these things through. If you haven't thought them through, you may find that you start to stumble a lot. The other thing so let's step back for a second. So the first thing you want to do is you want to determine what is your business and what is your product. And you can have multiple products, but I do want to caution you, you should really have one anchor product. And I myself have struggled a little bit with that because, yes, I have a retail business. That's one product, and it has lots of products within it. But I also have my mentoring and coaching program, and that's a product, and there are different products within that. But I have one main anchor program that I promote all the time. And by promoting that, then that does allow me later to expand into other things. So one of the biggest mistakes that small business owners make is that they try to open their door or their business with too many products. And so we call that shotgun, because what happens is you end up doing shotgun marketing. You're doing marketing in all different places for all different products, and it's not really building any business because people want to focus on one type of a product. So once you do that, and then you're going to build your brand, you're going to develop your brand characteristics. Once you develop your brand characteristics, then you need to write a story. You need to write a story about, why did I develop this business? How did I do this? What was my journey? You always want to have a story around your business because you have a story. You always have a story because you were led to start this business. Then you want to take that story, and then you want to take some of those elements, and you need a bio. You need a biography of, who are you? Again, what is your experience? I'm sure you took some courses and classes, or maybe you worked in the corporate world many years before, and that counts. That counts because it's experience. And, maybe you had an awakening, and you have a story when you stepped into your spiritual self. So you always want to have a biography about yourself, and you want a long one and you want a short one. And then you need to have what I call sound bites. You need to be able to write short, small sentences or descriptions about your business. A lot of people talk about having an elevator pitch. I kind of like to change that because I don't think that again, the word pitch starts to create fear around, oh my gosh, I got to pitch, I got to sell. So what I'd like to say to people is that you're going to create your passionate presentation, which is about 3 to 4 sentences, and that's it. But then you want to have sound bites. You want to have sound bites of clear qualities of your products or your business that you can share with others. Is that, we're about enlightenment. We're about, we're a soul-led business. You want to have short and small descriptions about your business as well. The most important part in building your business plan is knowing your audience. So if you don't know who your audience is, you're not going to know who to market to. And I will say this, when you start writing copy for your business, you're making a big mistake because you're writing it for you. Copy, marketing copy needs to be developed by an outside person or outside perspective because you want to be able to define your perfect customer, and then you want to be able to understand what their needs are and what's going to attract them. And then what you'll do is you need some outside perspective. So there's nothing wrong with writing your own copy, but what's going to happen is that you can draft your own copy and you can begin to develop it, but you need outside perspective. And of course, in the age of AI, you can also use AI to help you write copy, but then you also want to learn how to give the right prompts to be able to get the information that's correct. But I always highly recommend create your own focus group. I mean, of professionals, people that you know, other business owners, or just people in the corporate world, career-minded people. Share your copy with them and say, "Hey, does this tell you what you need to know in order for you to want to book a session with me or to participate in my program or to buy my product?" But you always want to get outside perspective, and that's really important. But the basics today is really more about getting your mindset in place, building your confidence, tapping into what the brand of your business is and the characteristics and the promises that you make to your customers and clients, and how you want to stay engaged in that commitment and those promises. And this kind of leads you up to developing the basic structure of your business all the way up into the moment then that you start to market it. And that's going to be a different podcast because we will get into a lot of areas of how to market. But right now, I think many of you could probably go back based on some of the things that I've shared with you today and how you could make your business better, or how you can get started with creating that business that's been a dream of yours and that you want to step into. So take some time, go back, review your business, listen to some of the things that I shared with you today, and I hope that this helps you be able to develop a bigger and a better business as you go out there and make a difference in the world. That's all for today. I'll see you soon.